Eddy Sabat on top now with 4.8 million. Dan Smith with 4.6 million, and the Australian Gary Benson with 4.2 million.
Oh yeah, first prize $1,161,000, and the antes are 10, blinds are 40 and 80. Let's get started. Gary Benson from Australia with a jack 6 of clubs, Mike.
180.
He's going to raise to 180.
Well, Gary has been very conservative. We started this final table, and all throughout this tournament plays pretty tight poker. Loosening up his game here, raising with the jack 6.
Eddy goes out, and now Dan Smith with a jack 7 makes this call, but the flop is a 10-9-5.
Gives Dan a gut shot straight draw, but he checks.
And Gary hit none of that, but he's going to make a continuation bet of 240.
Gary Benson, the first player to be inducted into the Australian Poker Hall of Fame. He's also the first Australian to win a World Series of Poker bracelet.
Dan Smith, he's going to make this call. We'll go into the turn, and it's a 9 of clubs that pairs the board.
No help to either player. Again, Dan checks.
Now, the Aussie's perception of the table is a very, very tight player. So when he makes moves, whether he has it or not, he gains respect. There, he's going to bet again. He's opening up his game right now. 475, Mike.
Well, look at Dan stare this guy down. And Dan lays it down, but what a play by Gary Benson. As you said, Vince, he has opened up his game short-handed here, making some moves.
You know, he not only makes moves in poker, I hear he's a pretty good chess player as well.
The newest real money online poker room is here, and it's called WPT Global. Join the world's largest poker network with games running 24/7 with buy-in levels to suit all bankrolls. We've got tons of cash games at all stakes and tournaments every day with huge prize pools. Sign up today in the description below and use bonus code YT85 and we'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar.
To these 3, Eddy Sabat has picked up a pair of 9s. He'll raise, makes it 160 to go. Dan out. And now Gary Benson, who is in the big blind already.
And the new chip leader looks down at the worst 2-card holding you can start with, the 7-deuce offsuit. But look, Vince, he has raised it 425,000. Is this the Gary Benson that we know?
He is a new Gary. He's getting the call, of course, by Eddy, because Eddy's got a real hand, pair of 9s. So here we go. And the flop is a 9. King 3-9. 3 of a kind for Eddy Sabat.
Oh, boy. This could be trouble for Gary. Whatever he bets, folks, is going into Eddy's stack. He's drawing dead already. Nothing he can catch to win this pot. And yet here he is betting.
Oh, boy. He's betting 450 with nothing. And right now, Eddy Sabat is digging a hole, putting the branches, the little twigs over it, waiting for the sucker to fall in.
Well, the sucker's already in there.
He's in there.
Just a matter how far he's going. And Eddy is just going to make the call here, going to walk the dog.
Oh, so
Love
smooth.
this play by Eddy here.
Sure. And an ace on the turn. So Gary's still with nothing.
750's a bit.
He's going to donate some more. We know that. He doesn't know it yet.
Well, 750,000 now the bet. Well, do you raise here or not? That's a question.
What a moment for Eddy Sabat from L.A., counting degree at USC, and he can figure this one out.
And another brilliant call by Eddy here.
Oh, just brilliant.
Just in case his opponent fires a third shell.
And a 7 actually gives poor Gary a little pair of 7s.
Check it.
By this time, he knows those are no good.
He's ready to throw up.
With no straight draw virtually and no flush draw out there, Gary knows this guy has got minimum king in his hand, perhaps a lot more.
And Eddy's trying to figure out how much he can extract.
Folks, that looks like about a $2 million bet right there. And Gary, you tried this hand, but back down under with those cards.
Yeah, sometimes a turtle should just stay under the shell. Gary came out, did not work out for him right there. But right now, Eddy Sabat taking home a big one. Beautifully done. And now the blinds are going up to 50 and 100 with an ante of 15,000. Action on Gary. He's got king 4.
Well, he is not slowing down. 225,000 here with the king 4.
Eddy going out, but look at this. 2 8s for Dan.
Well, this guy is a special player, folks. I can tell you that.
All in.
He's going to push all in, Mike.
I played with him a couple days in this tournament, and I'm telling you, I was really impressed with him.
Yeah, Gary can't call this.
I think there is very much a case of getting in the zone. This tournament, more so than others, I've been like tuning out the rest of the world, only focusing on the cards. I'm actually not sure how to regularly stay in the zone, but when you're there, it's like a special spot.
You know, he's had almost 4.6 million in worldwide earnings. Just incredible. What a player he is.
Well, just a moment ago, Gary Benson had the chip lead, but he's spewing them off quickly here.
Action on Eddy this time. And Eddy has a queen 9 of hearts. He'll raise to 200,000. Dan going out. And Gary Benson with an 8-7. He's already invested. He'll make the call. Mess around with it.
Oh, it's come 4, 5, 6. Bingo, bango, bongo for Gary's flop. The best hand possible. The 8 high straight. And it goes check, check.
Ace of spades on the turn.
Well, again, Gary checks. Hoping this guy's got an ace in his hand and will fire.
Well, he's going to fire. He's firing with nothing. 250,000.
Raise.
And here goes Gary with the raise. Yep, he makes it 600 total.
Well, Eddie's never going to call this bet. He's going to throw his hand away or raise it, and if he raises it, it could spell big trouble for him.
Eddy Sabat gets out of Gary's way. What a flop. Sometimes it pays to play those junk hands. And now Gary Benson first to play.
Cool.
And he is calling with king 4, and right behind him, Eddy Sabat with a pair of 8s. And he's the chip leader. And he's going to raise it with the 8s, 450 to go. Mr. Nub himself has an ace-10 this time.
It was called on the button. Raised out of the small blind. Dan has a short stack. What to do here?
All in.
Well, there's your answer.
Yeah.
Just ship it.
I'm all out.
Ozzy goes away.
Well, Eddie says count it. Eddie knows if he'd win this pot, he'd have Dan Smith out of his hair.
Well, he's made the call.
He'd had over a 2-1 chip lead, playing heads up for the title. He's made the call. Now can he win the race?
Dan Smith, the poker pro, 24 years old, out of Vegas. You know, he quit college after 1 year, decided to play poker full time. It's paid off in a big way for this young guy, but right now he needs a little luck.
Invariably, after all the play, it comes down to a race to see if you can live on in a poker tournament.
Wow. 2 young guys with a big title on the line right now with 5 cards to come.
Well, it's come Jack 9-3. So far, so good for Eddie. The 2-8 still out front.
Certainly are. Nothing hitting for Dan.
You can see Dan anxiously hoping to hit something to stay alive. And he does! An ace on the turn. Dan Smith has taken the lead in this pot. Eddie must catch an 8 on the river to eliminate Dan.
What a 4th street. Incredible. Down to the river. Can an 8 show up? Let's see. Nope.
Well, 4 diamonds. And Vince, give Dan Smith credit. If he just calls with the ace-10, he's going to get bet out of the pot on the flop and lose the hand. By moving all in, he gave himself a chance to see 4th Street and the river to win that pot. Dan Smith doubles up. We still have 3 players left.
The title up for grabs right now. Action on Eddy Sabat. He's got ace-10.
Did you know that Eddie has a superstition that once a tournament starts, if he's doing well, wears the same pants every day?
Okay. Sorry to hear it. But right now he's raised, and behind him, Dan has ace-9.
But Dan plays a little more conservative than people think in certain situations. This being one of them, just calls here.
Okay. Now Gary Benson already has 100 in there. He says for another 100.
Yeah, 545 in the pot. Why not call another 100? 3-way action.
And the flop is an ace, queen, 8. Oh, boy.
Well, Dan and Eddie flop top pair. Gary's flop middle pair. But Dan and Gary check.
This could get expensive. Here goes Eddie. He's making the bet 325. Gotta pay to play if you want to play with Eddie.
Well, again, Dan just calls, does not raise. It's like an easy getaway here for Gary. But he's going to make the call, too. I'm a little surprised by this.
I am, too.
And I say that because one of them might not have something, but you figure the other guy's got an ace. Why would you want to put your money in there with just 2 queens against 2 players?
10 of diamonds on the turn. That gives 2 pair for Eddy Sabat. Aces and 10s.
Well, again, Dan checks his aces. Gary's looking back. He has a gut shot straight draw now.
Well, he's checked into Eddie. And here comes the bet. He's betting 700,000.
Dan makes a good lay down to get away from his hand.
Eddy Sabat, I definitely respect. I think he's a pretty tough opponent. I know when he's involved in a hand, he's got a big hand, so you need to be wary.
So Eddy Sabat increases his chip lead, takes down a good pot there.
Gary Benson with a quick fold, and now Eddy Sabat, our chip leader, with an ace deuce.
Well, he limps in with the ace high.
And Dan Smith now with just a jack 6 of diamonds.
275.
Well, most people will be happy to get a free flop with that hand, but not Dan. He thinks his opponent's just not that strong because he didn't raise before the flop. Going to try to bet him out of it. Makes it 275 to go, but gets called by Eddie.
Flop is a king, 8, deuce, all diamonds.
Dan has flopped a flush, but Eddie's got a pair in the nut flush draw. Buckle up, folks. We could see a lot of fireworks right here, right now.
Eddie's checked. Dan bets, of course, 300.
You would think a raise would be coming here with the nut flush draw on a pair, but no. Just a call by Eddie. I would have raised it there had it been me. 10 of hearts comes off.
Doesn't change a thing. Eddie checks again.
And Dan with the flush, reaching for more chips.
Yep, he's bet 700,000 with the flush. Will the raise come now?
It does not. Makes the call. And a deuce comes off. This gives Eddie 3 deuces and could spell big, big trouble for him. He's just checked and called with the nut flush draw twice. Now he's got 3 deuces. He is beat, of course. Dan with the flush. Let's see how much he's going to bet.
On.
Well, there's your answer.
He has gone all in.
I don't think I've found any weaknesses in Dan's game. You're going to have the goods if you go up against Dan Smith.
I don't think you're bluffing, Dan.
Tough decision here for Eddie, but Vince, this is just too hard a hand to get away from, I think.
Now, if Eddie does call, though, he will lose, and Dan will become the new chip leader again. Can it be Eddie taking his time?
This is why I love poker. You just never know.
Well, the one advantage to laying it down is you still have the big chip lead with 3 left, but if you make the call and win the pot, you got a huge chip lead with 2 left. And the toughest guy at the table out.
Okay, Dan, I call.
Eddie's gonna make the call, and it's a mistake.
Oh, you flopped it. Nice, Dan. No.
Dan turns it over to the pain and loathing of Eddy Sabat. Oh, that's gotta hurt.
And Dan Smith doubles up.
The newest real money online poker room is here, and it's called WPT Global. Join the world's largest poker network with games running 24/7 with buy-in levels to suit all bankrolls. We've got tons of cash games at all stakes and tournaments every day with huge prize pools. Sign up today in the description below and use bonus code YT85 and we'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar.
With now the chip leader, 7.1 million in chips. 3 players down the stretch here at Bellagio. Action on Eddie, he folds his hand. And now Dan with an uneventful 9-8 offsuit.
250.
But he'll raise with it, 250 to go.
Gary looks down at the queen 4 spades. He's in position here, so he's going to make this call, and we're going to have a flop.
9-8 versus queen 4, and the flop is a king 4-7. 4s for Gary, nothing for poor Dan.
Well, Dan is going to continue to bet. 275,000. And Gary with bottom pair is going to make the call.
4th street is an ace of hearts, helps neither player.
Well, will Dan try to represent aces now? Nope, he's just going to sort of wave the flag. He checks.
Gary, we know, is out in front with the 4s.
Well, he'll probably be happy just to check it down.
Well, that's what he's going to do. He's going to check, go to the river.
Oh, an 8 comes off.
Boy.
This gives Dan the best hand with 2 8s. But he's going to be happy to check it down.
I think I got there.
As will Gary. You did get there indeed. Gary says, you got to be kidding me. This guy hit an 8 on the river to beat me. Gosh, dog it.
Dan Smith,
Yeah.
he's 24 years old. He's made close to $5 million in poker earnings. A guy that quit college after 1 year saying, wait a second, forget this college stuff. I found my niche. It's this little game that I play around a table and take people's money. All right, onto this hand. Gary Benson with the decision. He's got king 7. And he will raise it. Makes it 200,000 to go. Eddy Sabat out. And Dan Smith, our chip leader at this point with a king 9, will call. Here we go with the flop. It is an 6-6-8. Helps neither player. Dan is checked.
Well, Gary is going to bet here. 250,000. And Dan is going to make the call.
He is slopping around, but a king hits. They both have kings now, of course.
Now Dan also has a flush draw with his kings.
They both check again. And a 9 on the river.
Dan Smith hit the top 2 pair and the last 2 cards.
He certainly did, and now he's coming out with a bet. 550 fires into Gary.
Well, Gary can't wait to call here, I promise you.
And he does so. Not gonna like it.
He makes the call. He sees what's happened here.
Yeah.
He was out kicked anyway, but
Yeah.
chances are it would have been a split pot most of the time.
Gary's he's shaking his head saying, can I look at that again?
Oh, boy.
Dan Smith now on a good rush of poker. All right, Mike. Antes have gone up to 20,000. Blind 60, 120. Quick fold by Gary Benson. And now Eddy Sabat
120,
with
right?
an ace-6. Just calling. Interesting.
He just seems to play so conservative when he's in a hand against Dan. I think you have to raise here with ace high.
Dan also content to see the flop, and the flop is a queen 9-5. That's 9s for Dan Smith. Eddy is checked.
How is Dan Smith running right now? My golly. And Dan is going to bet the 2 9s.
Yeah, 150,000. Eddy's calling though.
Well, he calls with just the ace high.
Going to the turn 7 of clubs. And Eddy checks. Dan's going to check behind him this time to the river card. 4 of diamonds. Dan out in front. Eddy's checking.
Well, I'm sure Dan feels the 2 9s are the best hand by now. He's going to make a little value bet of 275,000 here. And Eddy with just the ace high. He's got to hope Dan's got something like King Jack or Jack 10 here. Busted the straight draw. And he's going to look him up with ace high, but it's not going to be any good as Dan shows him a 2 9s and takes down the pot. And you just wonder, had Eddy raised pre-flop, would Dan have even seen a flop? I don't know.
Sometimes you try to disguise your ace high. You play it tricky. It backfires. Happened there.
Well, Dan Smith now has over 10 million in chips. His opponents both have less than 2 million.
Eddy Sabat from Los Angeles. This time Eddy's got ace 9. He's going all in with it.
Well, I don't blame him here.
And Dan behind him has a pretty solid king queen of spades.
call.
Yes, he's called.
And they can well afford to make this call.
Certainly does. There's Eddie's girlfriend Melissa in the audience sweating her man. Gary gets out of their way. So they turn up the cards.
Well, Eddie has the best hand. Almost a 3-2 favorite to double up here and stay alive. Melissa likes it.
Yeah.
Look at that. Fun freaking game.
What a moment for these two young guys.
Well, he knows how good Dan is running right now, and he's saying to himself, come on, let my hand hold up just once here.
Two highly respected young poker players going after a title. It's coming down to this. A king hits on the flop. King Jack 6. Dan takes the lead. Melissa hates it.
Well, Dan's playing well, running well. You're just not going to beat that combination.
Turn card. It's a 3 of clubs. No help for Eddie.
Well, he stands up, knows he has to catch an ace on the river, or he's out of here in third place.
Yeah, counting major from USC. Can figure the numbers. Can he figure out hitting an ace here on the river? That's what he needs, Mike.
Yeah, won that one time in.
Dan praying that he doesn't. Let's take a look. It's a 10 of spades.
Tough luck for Eddy Sabat. Got his money in with the best hand, but it just shows you when a guy's on a roll like Dan Smith, you outdraw your opponents too. Eddy Sabat is going to go home, Vince, and say, I had it. The guy, I had 2 8s versus an ace 10, 3 blanks on the flop. He caught an ace to double up right. I had the big lead.
Absolutely brutal, Mike. Eddy Sabat out in third place, 436,000 richer. A great effort, a fine poker player. But he's gone. He's talking to Matt Savage.
Eddie said it was a dream of yours to make a WPT final table and take the title. How hard is it to come so close, have the chip lead, and then not take it down?
It was my dream, and even third place still feels kind of good. I'm not gonna lie, it still feels good. But and there's always, I'm pretty sure if I check the schedule, there's more WPT events. So.
Definitely more WPT events coming right around the corner, LAPC right around the corner as well. I'm sure we'll see you in your hometown of LA.
Yes,
but the good news is at least you get to go home and change your pants. Isn't that right, Melissa?
Yes.
Thankfully. I need to be retired.
All right, they're coming back. All right, back to you, Len.
I might not watch it still.
He's got nearly 12 million in chips. Gary Benson starting out with 1.7 million.
Dan Smith, 24 years old. Gary Benson, 56. And Gary Benson now with an ace 8.
He just limps in, does not raise here.
Trying to get tricky with that.
On
And
the short stack.
Dan with a queen 5 of clubs.
Maybe he's hoping Dan raises here and he's going to ship it all in, but
Yeah.
I am surprised that you give a great player a free flop, especially when you have ace high on the button.
Well, Dan has just called, and we are going to see the first 3. And it is a queen for Dan.
You give him a free flop, that's what happens to you.
Check, check, they go. And an 8 of diamonds on the turn. Now that gives Gary 8s.
That might spell trouble for him.
Could get him more involved, that's for sure. Now Dan's coming out with a bet of 175.
And sure enough, Gary makes the call. So we are going to the river.
And the river card is a 4 of diamonds. Doesn't help Gary.
3 diamonds on the board.
Dan with top pair. Gonna put in the old value bet, 375. Saying, pay me off, sir, pay me off.
Well, Gary thinking about doing just that, of course. Send the guy back to a flush. Did he really have queens? Would he bet 2 10s if he had him here?
Wow, he's gonna call this.
Well, curiosity call, he calls him. Dan proudly turns up a 2 queens and takes down the pot.
That is really going to be big trouble for Gary Benson. He is getting whittled away right now. Dan Smith, oh so close, but putting his name on the WPT Champions Cup.
Colin.
Call.
Gary's got a pair of 4s, has gone all in. Dan with King 10 has made the call. We've got the showdown.
Well, we've got another race. This time it's for Gary's tournament life. He's got the pair, Dan's got the 2 overcards.
They get up from their seats.
Dan won the key race when he had to double up to stay alive. Now can he win one to end the tournament?
Oh, man.
I still didn't get a card bigger than a 6, so you can create the flop below 6 as well.
Gary giving orders to the dealers, keep them low.
Young Dan Smith with an opportunity of a lifetime. This is the Doyle Brunson 5 Diamond World Poker Classic. It's all on the line right now.
Everybody on their feet. Here comes the flop. 10 right on the flop. Wow.
That's a title flop right there. 10's out in front for Dan.
Vince, the guy is playing great and running great. Tough combination to beat. But it's not over.
Club.
Gary's praying for the 4. 2 cards to come. 4th Street coming up right now.
9 of diamonds comes off. We are down to the river. Gary Benson must catch a 4 on the river. Needs a Colt 44 or he's going to be shot down as our runner-up.
Oh boy, he needs a 2-outer on the river to stick around. Otherwise, young Dan Smith, daring Dan Smith, will take down this title. Let's go to the river.
Any 4 will do, dealer.
Here come the nubs. Here come the nubs.
Let's let me know.
Well, we're about to see the Dan Smith nub.
River card.
There you go. Dan Smith has done it. He has captured his first WPT title.
Incredible comeback by Dan Smith. He has done it. He's our champion right now.
Gary, you've come a long way and you had a great week. Was it worth the trip?
Oh, definitely worth the trip, Matt, yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, you are a legend of the game, but I think you lost to a pretty formidable opponent tonight.
Yeah, look, Dan played very well. He's a worthy champion, and congratulations to him.
All right, thanks a lot, Gary. Hope to see you again on the World Poker Tour.
I'll have to be back.
Mike, over to you.
Congratulations one more time to Dan Smith, our champion. Lynn, back to you.